I got a feeling.
When I think of multicultural education, the first thing that comes to mind is no two people are alike. You need to go through each student and see what's going to work best for them, and you need to adjust your curriculum to how they're going to learn it.
It means valuing everyone's culture and not just one kind of monocultural way of doing things, as a lot of us grew up with.
Everyone has a different background that they come from, and the more that we learn about that, the more that we can really assimilate with each other, so that way we can, accept each other's differences and move on from that. Everybody in this class is very forthcoming in where they've come from and what lessons that they've learned from their own backgrounds.
An education that's kind of catered for everyone to be able to succeed and to be able to learn in their own way.
We're so diverse that being multicultural is something that I guess all teachers should be.
Multicultural education, its potential is there in that students can both heal in the process of education, but they can also go deep into looking past these rhetorics of human nature and to truly understand how they can become social agents in historical subjects. My name is Miguel Zavala, and I'm assistant professor in the Department of Secondary Education here at Cal State Fullerton. In a collective way, and it makes you have to force your own assumptions back on yourself and think, well, what did I really say? Do I really believe this? Where did I get my beliefs from? Multicultural education historically has become a strategy by communities to counteract the primarily racisms that have been institutionalized in our society. So it grows out of a movement post Brown versus Board of Education. And so in education, the clearest manifestations we have historically now, with all of its contradictions, are ethnic studies programs, which in places like Arizona are being eliminated. How do we include radically people on a spiritual level, which is a part of our being? How do we do that? I don't think there's a cookie cutter response, but I think that you're on the right path by beginning with this ethic of, community, of trying to instill a sense of community, of that voice. Here we might think of the voice of a marginalized student, or also it could be the dominant voice.
My name is Annabelle Hernandez. I'm from Cuba. I'm gonna be a Spanish high school teacher. And when I came to the United States, I started going to high school. I did my senior year here, and my teachers did a great job on making me feel integrated. So that really helped me learn and feel that my voice was important.
Education might not be the only space in which this gets enacted, and often I think we look for education as the vehicle. And by education, I mean, in its broadest sense, like pedagogy and consciousness. But I think that there may be other ways in which we can move forward towards radical inclusivity at a social scale, not just in classroom spaces. And so this is the work in Spanish is de base. It's from the base level. It's where subaltern groups, historically oppressed groups, take up the challenge for themselves, and often it happens in response to the very violence that they're living, right? The very conditions end up being, the fuel that begins this historical transformation.
Rather than we're gonna make it twice.
And like in math, I've seen that shift. You're allowing them to solve problem solve.
Radical inclusivity is important to schools because there is value in every individual student as an individual, what their experiences bring into the classroom, and making the extra effort as the teacher in order to find out where their value is will build a better community within the classroom, as well as just build a better individual within the student and students around them.
And I always feel like there's certain things in my education that were very meaningful to me, and I remember them, where there's other things where the teacher's standing in front of the room, I'm like, I don't remember what the heck they were doing.
3 days later, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. So I think that this is a much more, it requires a lot more prep and everything as a teacher and a lot more effort on your part, but I feel like...
But I think that radical inclusivity, and it's really It's precisely that. It's a radical view of community. And could you imagine what a community would look like on a global scale? I don't think it's actually been materialized. It hasn't happened yet.
I think it's important to understand that we as teachers have the responsibility to include everyone's perspective and take into account that every student comes from a different background and respect and celebrate that difference.
What is it about those community societies that we can learn about participatory democracy, even about liberation, about freedom, all the concepts that we say are a part of the U.S. Constitution and why this nation was formed? Because I think if we don't truly open ourselves to not just critique, and I guess what I'm saying is not just a rational disposition, because often that's what critical thinking seems to be. It's a rational thing. I'm going to consider this point of view. But I think in every being, on a spiritual, emotional, embodied level, when we open ourselves to something that's completely radical and different, we are on better ground.
Let's do it, 'cause I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. A feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna